Good to go.
For those of you that have tuned in early, we'll get this started in about 2 minutes. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to welcome you to the We Make Milton Vision and Guiding Principles Open House. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us here today. We're very excited to make a presentation to you shortly. What we really want to reiterate tonight is that this is your plan. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to listen to your concerns, address your concerns, and have an open dialogue as we move throughout the planning process. And on that note, I think it's really important to understand that there will be multiple opportunities throughout this process for you to provide input. We at the town of Milton, we're truly excited about our new official plan project. We've named it We Make Milton, and we feel that embraces our community. With respect to this evening, I will be handing things off to Nancy Reed. Nancy Reed is the planner who is leading the file or the official plan review. She is working with the team of policy planners at the town of Milton. I think with that, I'd just like to introduce Nancy. Again, welcome you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. A very warm welcome to everyone who took the time out of their busy schedules to join us for this important project and this update that we're excited to share with you. So this is probably, if not definitely, the first official plan that we've had virtually due to challenging circumstances. So this may not normally be how we run a public open house or how we collect input from people face to face, but again, under the circumstances, this is how we're forced to do it. So we appreciate you being flexible with us. And also patient with us tonight as we perhaps or not perhaps work through anything that comes up that may be unexpected. I'd also like to ask that everyone be respectful of each other. I'll go through some housekeeping options or points to guide us tonight. And I think number one is just let's all be respectful. There's an opportunity to share your ideas and thoughts over the chat tool, and I'll get to that in a moment. But we're here to share with you our ideas and also to listen to you. And we're excited, and we just want to make this as comfortable and as easy as possible under the circumstances. So in terms of our meeting agenda tonight, as I said, I'll walk you through some housekeeping or technical items. I have a 30 to 40 minute presentation that I'll walk you through. Then we like to go through Q&A, and then we'll talk about next steps. We hope to wrap the meeting. Well, we actually don't have an end time to the meeting. So as long as you would like to stay on and chat about it, we're happy to be here. And whether that's ending in an hour or an hour and a half, it's completely up to you and your level of interest in the project and in sharing your ideas with us. I'll also say that this is not the only opportunity to share input, and we'll give you some options for reaching out to us at the end of the meeting. So in terms of housekeeping or technical information, and this was on the opening slide, so this is probably not new if you were waiting for a few minutes to join us. But the purpose of the meeting is to provide an update on We Make Milton, our new official plan project, and to present the proposed vision and guiding principles. Participants do not have access to video or audio, so that doesn't mean you can't hear us, as you're well aware by this point, but it's not an opportunity for dialogue back and forth, so you won't be able to speak up over Zoom tonight. You also won't be able to show your face. But if you do have questions, we're inviting you to send them either through the online chat tool that's on YouTube. I think you'll see that on your right-hand side of the screen. So you can enter in your questions, and Tasia Squire is on board for monitoring those and communicating those questions to us at the end of the meeting. If you're using this by phone and you can't see the chat tool, then please also feel free to send your questions to Tasia Squire at milton.ca. The address is on the screen. So she'll be monitoring her email as well as the chat function. And at the end of the presentation, we'll do a Q&A, as I mentioned, and she'll take us through those. You can also after this meeting. And I would also, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but I would encourage you to jump over to We Make Milton right after this meeting, because there's an opportunity to while you're in the zone, while we're all on a roll, we'll invite you to jump over and share a story about what the proposed vision means to you. But that webpage is up all the time. It's been up for a year. It documents everything that we've done so far. There's a lot of information on it, and I encourage everyone to check out that project webpage. Just to subscribe to our email list, and you'll be kept informed in everything that happens throughout the process. And also, if you want to reach out to us, you are more than welcome to, and there is a form where you can contact us, and it just says reach out to the project team, and those come directly to my inbox, and I'm happy to see those emails and happy to respond. So as I said, over the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'll walk you through a PowerPoint presentation. And the purpose of the PowerPoint presentation is to talk about our visioning report. And the visioning report is the outcome of the first few stages of our new official plan project. We're still very early into the process. So if you're just joining in tonight and this is your the first time you've heard about We Make Milton, not to worry. We want to share with you our visioning report, our proposed vision and guiding principles, and there's still lots of time to provide input on that. But we want to talk, first of all, to get everyone on the same page. We'll talk briefly about why a new official plan, what is an official plan. I'll talk about project status, where we've been, where we're going. I'll give you a listening and learning recap. So I'll let you know what we did during phase 1. I'll talk about our visioning methodology. So I'll talk about what we did in phase 2. I'll share key findings, and then we'll present our proposed vision and our proposed guiding principles and talk about how they'll be used. After that, we'll open it up for Q&A. All right, so as I said, I'd like to get everybody on the same page. If you're new to the process and you may be wondering what exactly is an official plan, that's the purpose of this slide. There is discussion. This is very similar to the discussion in our visioning report. So you can also refer back to it, and that report is available, of course, on the project website. But let me just walk you through exactly what an official plan is and what it does. So an official plan, and we may call it an OP throughout the presentation. So an OP is a legislated and overarching planning document that establishes how land is to be used in a municipality. So what's really key there is this is a land use document, and we're talking about land uses and what's permitted and how you're allowed to use your land, or what your opportunities are for using your land, and how land might change from now to 20 years in the future. It's also a visionary document. So we're talking about the year 2051, and I'll talk more about that as we go through the presentation, but it's a very visionary document. We've set our sights far ahead into the future, and we're trying to establish and talk about and set a plan for how Milton will change over a 30-year planning horizon. So it's a big document. It's a broad document. In terms of what's actually in an official plan, it contains goals, objectives, policies, and maps. And all of those together address growth management, how we'll grow into the future, land use designations and permitted uses, built form, height, density requirements, infrastructure and roads, parks and community facilities, mobility, transit delivery methods, urban design, public spaces, and very importantly, how we protect Milton's resources. One thing I want to say before I do jump forward is that, yeah, there's a few things also to keep in mind. It's not like this is a no holds barred situation. We can't write an official plan and just say how it's going to be and we make all the decisions. We're working under a framework of provincial policy and regional policy. So we must conform to a number of provincial policy documents, and some of you may be familiar with those: the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the Greenbelt plan, etc. We also must conform with the regional official plan. So in some ways, we have very few options about how we write our policies, but in other ways, we do have a lot of options. So there are some areas of policy where it's very strict and we don't have a lot of leeway, but there are other areas of policy where it's really up to the local municipal team to define policy and set policy out. So there are some areas where we have options and there are some areas where we don't. We'll get into that further as we move through the process. But it's just, I think it's just an important thing to keep in mind as we set out. So why do we need a new official plan? Well, first of all, the Planning Act requires all municipalities to prepare a new official plan every 10 years or to revise an existing official plan every 5 years. Our existing official plan was first prepared in 1997. We have a number of amendments that have happened since then. It's time for a new official plan according to the legislation, but also according to like what's happened on the ground. And I think this is a really great picture to show how much Milton has changed since our official plan was prepared in 1997 to today. So this is the same area that you're looking at, and it shows how much we've changed. And this just demonstrates, I think, the amount of change that's happened. It's also time to revisit our policies and decide how much they need to change, if at all. There's a lot of stuff that's happened since 1997, not only on the ground, but also in terms of policies. And I'll be talking about that in just a moment. So in terms of the process and the status, as I said a couple times, we're still very early in the process. We launched the project in the summer of 2019, so we're about a year into it. We've spent the first year, as I call it, listening and learning. As I said, our official plan is quite old. It was prepared in 1997. And in terms of setting out policy and talking about the future of Milton, we really haven't had, as a community, an opportunity to talk about what's happened and where we're going. So phase one was focused on listening to ideas about planning issues, opportunities, and challenges in Milton. And we look to you as the public to help us answer that. Listening and learning was also focused on spreading the word about the project and generating awareness. So you may have seen cutouts of the Miltons, our characters that we've created. You may have seen some signs or billboards telling you about our visioning night, or you may have even participated in visioning night. But that's really what we were focused on in phase one, was generating awareness and providing opportunities for the public to tell us what you want. Phase two was kind of just narrowed down a little bit. We kind of just focused more in on how to create a new land use planning vision and guiding principles for future planning and development. So every official plan sets out early in the document, what's the planning vision? What are we all working for? And what are the guiding principles? How are they going to help us get there? We'll be moving into phase three, which is big questions. Phase four, which will be drafting the official plan and talking about it a little bit more. And then phase five, eventually we'll end up at a new official plan. This whole process is going to take a couple more years. And part of that is because there's a lot of work to do, but the other part of that is that we're kind of following the footsteps of the region. So the region is undertaking their official plan review. And as I said, a lot of what's in their official plan, we're required to implement. As they move along, we'll be moving along, but ultimately, when we have a new official plan to present to council, it'll depend on when the region's process is complete. I'll talk a little bit more about these phases as we move forward. So listening and learning, phase one. I just want to go over what we've done in phase one. And you can refer to pages 9 to 12 in the visioning report for a much more in-depth overview of what exactly we did. And hey, perhaps you were even at some of these events, or you contributed online, so you're quite familiar with some of them, perhaps. So we launched the project June 24th, 2019. That feels like forever ago. We launched the Meet the Miltons communication project. So as I said, we really identified engagement as a key part of this process. We haven't chatted about planning as in a holistic way since 1997. So communication and engagement has been huge for us. And in order to get to people and kind of share that planning affects you day to day, and to make this relatable and interesting, we created the Miltons, the Milton family. So Meet the Miltons is an introduction to the Milton family. If you haven't watched Meet the Miltons or our communications launch video on YouTube, you can Google it and it'll take you to it on YouTube, or it's also available on our project website. There's a link to it there. So Meet the Miltons. Again, we're speaking through the Miltons at this point. We want to share with you some of the key planning issues, and we want to express to you that this is an important project that affects your day-to-day life. And so to learn a little bit more about that, and to actually meet the Miltons, check out the website and watch our video. You'll also have seen them. They pop up in the visioning report, of course, and they'll keep popping up. So we launched an online engagement on July 2nd, 2019, and that was just about asking questions. There were a lot of opportunities, a lot of opportunities to share your big, broad overview, umbrella ideas about where we're going and what you want. Part of that was a crowdsourcing tool. So we invited members of the public to pinpoint areas of the town and tell us what you like about it, what you don't like, what needs to be changed. We had a lot of staff engagement. Some staff live here, some staff don't, but we're all part of the community, and we wanted to hear from all staff about what their opinions are in terms of what they love, what they don't love. And not only with the official plan, I mean, some of us are using it on a day-to-day basis, and there's some things that people do like and some things people don't like, but also just about the future of Milton. We held some We Make Milton presentations to the MEDAC, so the Milton Economic Development Advisory Committee, as well as we presented at a mayor's breakfast. We have assembled a technical advisory committee. So that includes people from the town, it includes local agencies, regional staff, school boards. This is the group that we're really going to get into the meat of policy development, all that technical stuff that probably not a lot of you want to get involved in. We're really going to hash out what words are used and how they're used, and really getting into the technical meat of the official plan as we move forward. This is a really important committee, and we've also set up a couple other committees that are equally as important, maybe just function in a different way, and I'll tell you about those shortly. So we met with the technical advisory committee mid-October of last year. We also had a set of community pop-up events. So we went to you, and by the way, that's been kind of like an overarching approach to all of this. We are trying to be really proactive about going to you and getting you interested in this and letting you know how important this project is. So we're going to continue with pop-up events. when and if that becomes feasible and safe in the near future. But we did spend some time in the community. We went to Spring Ridge Farms. We went to the new community center. We went to the Milton Innovation Center, and we just spent a few hours there talking to people and asking for input. Under Section 26 of the Planning Act, we're required to report to Council before we launch a new official plan project or before, as part of the launch of an official plan project, we are required to report to Council in terms of what we've heard from the community are the biggest issues and what need to be addressed through the official plan. So on November 18th last year, we held a Section 26 meeting to present to Council everything that we've heard so far that does need to be addressed from the perspective of the public and everyone else that we talk to through this process. Finally, we had our We Make Milton Visioning Night very shortly after our Section 26 meeting, which was a really exciting night. We had more than 100 people there, and we did a lot of interactive activities. We had a guest speaker, and we focused on the rest of the night on talking about what the future of Milton should be. Okay, so I just have a few pictures to show you that are kind of the outcome of our visioning process. This is my favorite picture. It is our crowdsourcing map where you can see where people have actually pinned what they like, what they don't like, and what they want changed. And I love to see how the comments are spread throughout the town, very concentrated in the urban area as we might expect, but I love that we heard from everyone in different parts of the town. Okay, I said that was my favorite picture, but I think this is my favorite picture. This is Charles Montgomery, author of Happy City, and he came out to our visioning night to give an inspiring speech just about what makes a happy city. And when you think about it, like, this is what we're really getting at. This is the point of the whole thing. Like, how can we create a plan that makes that creates an environment for a happy city? And as you can see, the Miltons made it out to Visioning Night, as well as a huge diversity of people. Okay, I lied. This is my favorite picture. This is our team member, Hugo. I don't know what he's arguing about here. I like to think that he's like arguing over the best place to skateboard or the best place to hike or something. But as you can see, it was a big turnout. Visioning Night was a huge success, and we got a huge amount of input. But also there was a huge amount of diversity in terms of who turned out. We had the young and the old. I mean, there was just representation from all the group, a lot of the groups that I think are present in Milton today. So we were extremely satisfied about with the outcome of Visioning Night. And I think these numbers kind of speak to it. So just through phase 1, listening and learning, and phase 2, visioning, we had over 600 attendees at our public engagement events. We had over 20,000 people look at or watch Meet the Miltons on YouTube. We engaged with more than 50 stakeholders, and that's like totally just the beginning. I've been spending most of the last 2 weeks chatting with stakeholders about the visioning report and getting a stakeholder committee together. Maybe some of you who are online right now are on the stakeholder committee. We've also assembled, or we're working on assembling, a community leadership committee. So we sent out a call for leaders across the community, people who want to be involved in this and who are maybe underrepresented in the process. So we have at least 80 more people to add to that. We received more than 400 comments, written or online, 100 plus social media comments. That crowdsourcing map I showed you, there's more than 300 pins on that. On Let's Talk Milton, our project webpage, we had 3,200 plus people sign up and 400 plus people who provided input. So we're really happy so far, but the work's not done. And that's why I say I'm spending a lot of time right now reaching out to stakeholders and reaching out to people who are not normally part of the process to encourage them to be part of the process. We're being really proactive about this. So I want to talk a little bit about results. As I said, we're proud of what we've done. If you want to look at all of the results, not all of the results, but a good summary of the results, you can look at page 14 to 18 of the visioning report. There's also our report to council at the section 26 meeting, which gives a very thorough documentation of all of the input that we've received so far. But I wanted to highlight this because for me, this is where I was kind of like, something interesting is happening. And so our question to the community, it related back to the Miltons. And so we created these characters that represent a wide range of the demographics of the town of Milton. And we created these characters and gave them a story, gave them a persona. I even had someone ask me, well, what would Jazz think about that? Which I loved. I loved the question. These characters have taken on a life of their own. And so we asked everyone, who is your favorite Milton character? And the results are on the screen. So number one was Jazz. And Jazz, he is a young professional. He lives right now in a basement apartment with his wife. He commutes to Toronto. He is an architect, I think. He's really into eco-friendly buildings. And so he was number one. He was the most, from those that we pulled, he was the most relatable Milton character. But very close behind was Stella, who is very opposite of Jazz. She is not really, so I should have mentioned that Jazz wants to move into a condo right by the GO station. Stella, a little iffy about high rises happening, how change is going to happen, where it's going to happen. She's very cultural and she's very into events that are happening throughout Milton, but she lives in the mature neighborhood in a heritage house, and she's really proud of Milton's past and wants to make sure that it's preserved and promoted. So just these two, who are probably the most different, being the most popular, was really an interesting finding that just really jumped out at us. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Like, that was just the teaser, the start, like just something that kind of made us take a moment to think and pause and like, oh, this is really interesting. So as I said, every official plan has a vision statement. It sets out a vision statement, it sets out guiding principles, and then it has goals and objectives and policies that all come back to that vision statement and those guiding principles. So a vision statement is a really important component of an official plan. It sets the tone, it sets the feel, it sets the direction of where we're going. So this is a huge step in our process, and this report is really important, and that's why we're absolutely looking for as much input as we can, and we'll go through some ways that you can provide input. But I thought I'd take a minute to just talk about our current official plan vision statement. So in our existing official plan, you can find it in section 2.1.1. And the vision statement is engaging, balanced, connected. And this vision statement is supported by a number of goals, not guiding principles, but goals, and they serve the same purpose. And so those are also in that section of the official plan, and you can flip through the document and check it out if you'd like to. But as we set out on this phase, visioning, phase 2 of the process, we asked ourselves, does this existing official plan vision statement still reflect the ideas of the community? So this is the question that we posed as we launched phase 2 of the project, visioning. And we did a number of activities throughout the community with our TAC, with broad members of the public, with the participants of our visioning night to get at that. And so we did it in a very abstract way. We asked our technical advisory committee members and members who participated in visioning night, we asked them to create a visioning board. I'm not sure how, I mean, perhaps some of us on the call tonight have made our own visioning board, and essentially it's cutting pictures and words out of magazines and creating and pasting them on a canvas and creating a vision, an image, a collage of images that represent where we want to go in the future. So in total, we created 5 vision boards, and they are presented in the visioning report. They're also jumbled all over my office here in Milton. I look at them all the time, and they're inspiring, and they taught us a lot. So that was one of our first big visioning activities. We also did an in one word activity. So when we went out to our pop-up events, we had these little cutout cards, and we just asked people to answer in one word, what's your vision for Milton in 2050? And here are some examples of some of the comments that we got. The third activity was called 30 years from now, and this was the focus of our visioning night. So we asked people to answer this question very simply, and you can see on this slide that we got great pictures drawn by some people. We got a lot of words provided by some people. We got very few words, like just a few words provided by people. It was just an activity where you could open up and share with us in your way what Milton will look like 30 years from now. So we did all this work in 2019, and then came a new year, and in 2020 we spent our time analyzing and assessing the input that we received. And again, we had 3 steps. So I won't get into too much of this. You can look to pages 27 to 33 for a fulsome discussion of exactly what we did. Our first step was just to organize the input based on the source. So we had 6 major events or activities that we did, and we just put all of the input into buckets based on where we got the input. The second task was to organize the input based on themes. So as we move through this process, you'll see that we're kind of talking about things in boxes. So, and this is just for the sake of sharing information and organizing information, but we're looking at as themes, living in Milton. What's it like to live in Milton? What's it like to move in Milton? What's it like to work in Milton? And what is it like to grow in Milton? And by grow, we mean the physical growth of the community. So we took all of the input and then we put it in those boxes, just as an organizing measure. The third step we did is then we took each of those themes and then we identified sub-themes. So all of the input was then broken into a number of different sub-themes. So within living in Milton, we realized that there were certain themes about gathering places, certain themes about recreation, certain themes about public spaces. And so we started to categorize all of the input within those themes into sub-themes. And what we noticed is that some sub-themes came up very, very frequently. And that suggested to us that those sub-themes were a high priority to Milton's residents. So this slide, I want to just talk about some of our key findings. And you can look at pages 31 to 33 for a better explanation, for a more fulsome explanation. But our number one key finding was that there is an importance of themes to Milton's residents. So the most important theme, the one that we heard the most comments on, was living in Milton. So 43% of the comments addressed topics that are related to living in Milton. 30% of the comments are related to moving in Milton. So that was our second most popular theme. Our third most popular theme was working in Milton. 19% of the comments addressed working issues. And then the least popular was growing in Milton. So how are we going to grow as a community in the future? Our second key finding was related to top priorities. This is only almost half of the top priorities, but we ranked, so all of those things that I said kept coming up in terms of sub-themes that indicated that these issues, these sub-themes were a priority to Milton's community. We ranked them. And so maybe you'll see on this slide, I'm not sure if it's visible, and it's not meant to be. You can refer to the report if you really want to get into it. But the number one sub-theme that shows that it's a huge priority to Miltonians is the provision of amenities and facilities. I won't go through all of these, but the second one was environmental protection and conservation. The third was finding local job opportunities and job growth. And so there's 45, which is a lot, but we didn't want to like cut off any of these because they kept coming up. So we had 45 top priorities from Miltonians in terms of land use planning issues that need to be addressed in the official plan. And then the last key finding is what we call choice matters. And this one is big. And from all the range of priorities and preferences and things that we heard from the public, we decided that it was really clear that there's a lot of different preferences and priorities across the community. Everyone wants to make their own choices. Everyone wants to be, in control of making sure that their preferences are met and making sure that they create the lives that they want in Milton. So choice is a big thing for Miltonians, and in fact, perhaps that's why a lot of people came here to have choice. And so a couple quotes from the vision boards and from some of our in one word comment cards are endless possibilities, best of all worlds. So many ways to say welcome. There's many more in the visioning report on page 33 where you can learn a little bit more about the choice matters finding. And so we did all this work in 2019, and then we came back and we rolled up our sleeves, and our task was to create a new vision statement that better reflects where we are today as a community and where we want to go as a community to the year 2051. And this is the purpose of our meeting tonight, and this is the purpose of our visioning report, is to share this vision statement with you. We have Ian and Lola here to present it to you. The proposed vision statement for the new official plan is, in 2051, Milton offers a diversity of options for how and where we live, work, move, and grow. As we evolve, choice is what shapes us. So a simpler way of saying that is Milton 2051, choice shapes us. Over the past few weeks, we've had a few stories from all of our Milton characters about what this means to them. They're on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, they're on YouTube, they're on the Milton website. So if you want to hear like what this means from different perspectives, check those out. But also we want to know what this means from your perspective, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So Milton 2051, choice shapes us, is our new proposed planning vision statement. And this vision statement it's supported by a set of guiding principles. I'll talk to those in a minute. But what I want to be clear about before I do that is what it does mean and what it doesn't mean. So let me walk you through this table just to be clear, because it may not be a typical vision statement for a municipality. We think it completely, and we've heard so far that it very much reflects the reality of Milton and the diversity of Milton, but we want to be really clear about what we mean by it. So let me take you through what it does mean and what it doesn't mean. From our perspective as planners, it does mean that Milton offers so much choice in terms of where and how our community can live, work, move, and grow by the year 2051. Choice is important to Miltonians, and the need to make individual choices will shape our future. So remember, we're talking about 2051, and a vision statement is a statement meant to be read in 2051. So if we've achieved these in 2051, if this is a reality in 2051, then we've met our vision statement. So it is our perspective that choice shapes us means that. But what we don't think it means is that choices have already been made for Miltonians by municipal staff and elected officials, and that these predetermined choices will shape our future. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about enabling and empowering Miltonians to make individual choices that will shape their future. The second thing that I want to point out is that it does mean we're a diverse community, and our choices will be diverse too. Sometimes our choices will coincide. Sometimes our choices will differ. Making choices will involve compromise and trade-offs. Still, the official plan will value the importance of choice. On the flip side, it does not mean that everyone in Milton will be happy because we all got our way. Everyone got all of the choices that they want for living, moving, working, and growing. No, there's going to be trade-offs, but the important point is that there's going to be a lot of choices for which people can compromise and make those trade-offs. Finally, I want to express that choice shapes us does mean that the new official plan will allow for choice through a flexible policy framework that's performance and results based. So development applications will be evaluated in a flexible but consistent manner in accordance with provincial policy to enable good development. What it doesn't mean is that anything goes in Milton in terms of development applications, regardless of provincial policy and market realities. It does not mean that the official plan will permit anything and everything, no matter what. So I hope that clarifies or kind of enhances what we as the planning staff, the policy planning staff mean by choice shapes us. And now we want to hear from you, not right now, I'll get into that, but we do want to hear from you over the next few weeks about what it means to you. And so in order to articulate the vision a bit further, we've also identified a set of guiding principles. So guiding principles they stem from the vision statement. They're meant to refine and define that vision and sort of establish a path for getting there. So we've identified 12 guiding principles that work with our overall vision statement. You can look at page 36 to 39 for quite a detailed description of each of these guiding principles. We've hashed them out in terms of what we mean. I'll walk you through them quickly. We mean, the first guiding principle is to be creative and to provide choice. So that means to be creative about how we live, move, work, and grow in Milton, and also obviously stemming from our vision statement to provide choices in terms of how we live, move, work, and grow. The second guiding principle is mixed uses. So there's a desire to mix how we live, work, move, and grow, mix where we shop, work, play, and maybe segregate not maybe, but not segregate uses as much, but start to bring activities together in a way that's more efficient and effective in how we live our lives. The third is to move efficiently and safely, and that can be by bus, by car, by walking. I know Matthew Milton, one of our Miltons, he wants to be moving to and from school by hovercraft. So that's what we're trying to get at here, is that one of our proposed guiding principles is that we move safely and efficiently, and there's choice in the way that we do that. The fourth is diversify and prosper, and this really gets at economic development and jobs, and providing more choice in terms of jobs and more ways to grow economically as a community. Number 5 is prioritize the public realm. I've been chatting, as I said, with a few people about these guiding principles, and this one has been big. And what we mean by that is creating more places where people can connect and interact in the public realm, in public spaces. And this is also very relevant in light of COVID and our existing circumstances. Just places where people can safely and easily interact and socialize. Number 6 is support arts, culture, and recreation. We currently have a culture plan happening, so this one really aligns with our culture plan. Information about that project, which is very exciting, and I know there was a lot of stuff happening on the weekend to support that project. You can also easily find out about that project if you're interested on Let's Talk Milton. And I see a lot of alignment happening there. But this principle is really about creating and celebrating and promoting arts, culture, and recreation, and a lot more. Number 7 is make connections, and here we're talking about physical connections through roads, with our neighbors, through trails, bike paths, but also not physical connections. So connections through technology, connections with different agencies, different groups surrounding us, and groups that work with us as a municipality. Number 8 is protect our environment. I don't know how much more I can say about that. Something we heard loud and clear is that the escarpment and the natural areas in Milton are paramount to, and a huge reason why a lot of people live here and stay here. And so this is huge, a huge guiding principle. And I'll pause there just to say, none of these are in order. I could mix these up and present them in a totally different way in the official plan, because there's no priority here. There's no order. Every time I talk to a different stakeholder, they ask me, oh, well, I think number 10 should be number 1, or everyone is number 6 should be number 1. And yeah, maybe I don't know how to get away with not numbering them, but just let me reiterate that there's no priority here at all. Number 9 is promote the countryside, and we've been talking, perhaps that should be promote and integrate the countryside. That was a great suggestion from one of our stakeholders. And here we're talking about supporting and bringing both the urban and the rural together, and kind of blurring that divide that already exists. Number 10, encourage good green design. We're talking about sustainability here, and green building and good design, urban design. Number 11 is collaborate with different agencies, collaborate with the region, collaborate with with residents. We're all working on this plan together, and we'll be working on implementing this plan together, collaborating with developers, the development community. And last but not least is think local. Think local is thinking Milton. Thinking Milton when you are looking to shop. Think local is thinking about Milton when you're looking for something to do. It's prioritizing our local business and natural environment, and just prioritizing Milton as a place where we live. So how will they be used? This is important because a lot of times the first phase of an official plan project where we're creating a vision statement and guiding principles comes off as a little soft. Maybe some people think this, I won't get involved now. This is kind of fluffy. But actually this is a huge and important part of the process to get involved with or in, because it has a huge role in the official plan itself. So how will the vision and guiding principles be used? Number one, it's going to provide the basis for new policy development. So I talked about our future phases, big questions. We're preparing a set of policy discussion papers right now focused on our 4 themes. And we're going to be raising big questions that need to be discussed with the community. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into the meat of land use planning questions and policy options. And once these guiding principles and this vision is endorsed, we'll constantly be going back to them as we tackle these big questions. For example, where we grow, where we intensify, where we don't intensify, what does intensification look like? I mean, that one's top of mind because it's a big question in Milton. So we'll have a lot more of these big questions. And as we tackle them and answer them together as a community, we're constantly going to be referring back to the vision statement and the guiding principles to make sure that we're committed to them and that they're going to guide our policy development. Number 2, they're going to just be in the official plan. So choice shapes us, and the guiding principles. I said every official plan has its own flavor. And so these guiding principles and the vision statement are going to set the tone and establish the flavor of our new official plan. So that's all I have in terms of a presentation. And I know Tasia has been standing by and recording any questions that have come up or have been emailed to her. And so now I'd like to hand it over to Tasia to just walk us through those questions. And we have our team on standby. So Hugo's here, Megan's here, Jill's here. And if there are questions to be asked, we're happy to answer them.
Thanks, Nancy. We haven't had any questions in our live chat. We've had one that we've answered. So maybe we'll just wait a couple of minutes and give people a chance to send their questions in through the live chat or through email, and we'll see if we get any. How does that sound?
That sounds great. We'll give it a couple of minutes and just speak up if you see anything, Tasia.
Sounds great. There is a little bit of a lag time with this technology. So if you're typing in your questions, it might take a minute or two for me to see them on my end.
Sounds great.
Okay, first question, Nancy. It's from Margie Sims. How will good development like the Milton Education Village be addressed in the new official plan?
So I'll probably, I mean, my first answer is that this is an ongoing project that Jill is managing. So I'm going to hand it over to her for a second. But my immediate thought is that the MEV, the Milton Education Village, is going to be like a showcase of a place where choice shapes us is actually happening on the ground. So they're 2 separate projects. Ultimately, they will together make up the official plan. So a secondary plan is a much more a more refined, more detailed policies are established through that, but it'll still be part of our overall vision that choice shapes us. Jill, do you have anything to add to that?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Hi, it's Jill Hogan here with the Planning Department. Thanks, Nancy. I think you did touch upon how the Milton Education Village Secondary Plan, for all intents and purposes, when it is complete, it will form a chapter to our new official plan. We are significantly advanced in the planning for the Milton Education Village. We actually had our statutory public meeting just last week before council, and we're planning to come before council in November of this year, recommending a final plan for their consideration. Really, the Milton Education Village Secondary Plan, it's like no other plan that we've undertaken before. It's bringing together innovation, education, there's potential for long-term care, different forms of residential development. It really will be a showpiece for the town, and we're laying the groundwork through policy, very similar to the official plan process. It's just drilling it down into a finer level of detail. And but certainly all of that work will form part of this new official plan and will be consolidated into it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay, we have our next question from Stephen, and he's asking if adequate thought and input has been put into outdoor recreation. And he also mentioned and wanted to stress that this is a huge economic driver.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, the first two phases have been more about information collecting and gathering than about starting to talk about policy options and directions. So I would say no, for this project, not a ton of thought has been put into policies and policy directions for recreation. However, I'm just flipping through my my document because that one came up really high. It was number 10. Parks and Recreation was number 10 in terms of our top priorities. So out of all the comments that we heard, this was one of the top 10. Well, the 10th top issue. And I also mentioned that we're being really proactive about reaching out to people. So knowing that this is top 10 in terms of an issue that's important to Miltonians, we're reaching out to members of our recreation community, and we've included people in our stakeholder group who the president of a major soccer club and someone who manages a cricket sports team, their cricket team league. They're on our stakeholder group, and they're going to be advising us throughout the process on issues that are important to people who use our recreational facilities, to make sure that we're addressing what's important to them and the challenges that they face. And so the next phase of the process is having those more detailed conversations, and those will form the basis of future policy. I hope that answers your question, Steve, and thank you.
And Nancy, if I could just jump in a little bit on that, it's Jill Hogan again. In terms of one of the major goals of creating our new official plan is to create complete communities, and those complete communities encompass all of the uses that a person would require to meet their daily needs. And certainly recreational opportunities are a huge part of that, whether that's a community center, a park, just a place to linger, a public plaza, those sorts of things. And they will very much form part of our official plan, provide a strong policy framework with regard to that. That will trickle down into our new developments, and also will help inform infill developments in places like the lands around our current GO station. So that's very much a huge part of community building. It will be front and center, and we really need to ensure that, you know, our community does have that place to, you know, live, work, play, pray, all of the necessities of life. And when Nancy touched upon the thought of, or the priority of think local, we want to ensure that our plan enables these uses to come together, so that as Milton continues to grow, we ensure it grows in a complete way.
Perfect. Thanks for adding that, Jill. And if you want to get a little bit deeper into what we're thinking in terms of a guiding principle for supporting arts, culture, and recreation, you can look at guiding principle number 6 in our visioning report. Thank you.
Perfect. And I'm just going to add another comment that Stephen left, just so that way everyone knows what he's sending in. And he just wanted to stress the importance of leveraging Milton's natural showpieces to drive growth and intensity accordingly, and the importance of maintaining natural spaces for recreation, like cycling, hiking, and climbing. And next, we'll move to our next question from Margie. And she's wondering how questionable development will be addressed in the official plan. And the example that she's using is CN. But I think just in general, how will questionable development be addressed?
Nancy, would you like me to take that one?
Yeah, I do. But before, I just want to say one thing, that one of the things the official plan is going to do is really set out like a strategy for how we're going to develop. So right now, like a lot of times we're going to council and we're talking and debating about certain forms of development. Definitely, this is not related to CN. I'm totally going to give that to Jill to handle. But part of this vision and our new official plan is going to make it easier for council and staff to make decisions and debate and to talk about development proposals, because our vision statement and our guiding principles and all of our policies are going to be more prepared, are going to set us up for success, and set us up for managing certain development applications. That's like, I kind of took that a different way, because I've had a few questions about that. I just think with our new updated official plan, the policies are going to be there, and we're going to be really clear about what types of development we want where. But I will hand it over to you, Jill, to handle the CN.
Just very briefly, I think everyone knows what our council's position is on the CN proposal, along with Halton Region Council. They have indicated publicly on numerous occasions their objection to the proposal. I think it's important to note that all of the planning work that we have undertaken in the town certainly does not promote the CN Logistics Hub to locate there. This situation really is at a federal level at this point in time, but the town and the region have expressed extreme objection. In our urban structure, in terms of the town, we see those lands as being future employment lands one day. But at this point in time, until a final decision has been rendered, we're not clear on what exactly is going to happen there. It really is somewhat out of our hands, but in terms of our policy framework, we have not and will not include anything in our framework that would support that use there. And that's been made very clear by our local and regional councillors and mayor in that regard.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Jill. So our next question is about Laurier University, and I just wanted to note that we have added a link to the last council meeting in the live chat, where staff provided an update to council about Laurier and the Milton Education Village. Jill, did you still want to touch on it, or?
Yeah, I can certainly touch on it briefly. I think in terms of planning at the Milton Education Village, we are moving forward with an approval of a framework and land use plan that would enable Laurier, would enable Conestoga College, and would enable a multitude of uses at the Milton Education Village. We've been working very closely with Laurier, and Laurier is in partnership with Conestoga College, and they are very much still pursuing the opportunity at the Milton Education Village. In terms of timing, it's difficult to say the exact timing as to when Laurier or Conestoga would be in a position to open their doors. But from the town's perspective, what we are doing is making sure that all of the necessary approvals are in place so that when they are ready to start building and open their doors and welcome students, the framework and policies are in place to allow that to happen. Laurier right now, they're actually quite active. Many of you probably know that they are running some programming out of our existing Milton Education Village Innovation Center at 555 Industrial Drive. So they've already started a very strong presence in the town of Milton, and they've been running some courses in terms of Masters of Education there. But their intent at the Education Village is to have a broad range of programming, basically STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, so the whole gamut. It's just a question of the exact timing as to when they'd be ready to put a shovel in the ground. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later, but we're doing everything we can at the town in terms of getting the approvals in place so that they can get going when they're ready to.
Thanks, Jill. So we have a couple of questions here from Betty. I'm just going to group them all together, and then Nancy, you can just address them all as one. So I'll just read them out here. If the rural area has different priorities and guiding principles, can some of these be incorporated going forward? How does the concept of complete communities apply to the rural area? Most of the countryside is residential. Does livability play a factor, or are we considered a commercial or industrial area?
So I think the first question was, how can the goals and values, I guess, of the rural area be incorporated in the guiding principles? I mean, if they're not, if you feel like there's something missing, we absolutely want to hear. So I think that I spoke to integrating and promoting the rural area. And so, I mean, that's one of our guiding principles, and that's very important to us. And we want to hear from members of the rural community. And we want to make sure that all of your goals and values are addressed in the guiding principles. So please reach out to us if you feel like there's something missing, because now's the time to do it. I think the second question was about how to make rural areas, how to achieve complete communities in the rural areas. And yeah, that's a huge challenge. And so one of the great things about Milton is that we're one of the few GTA municipalities that can boast such a huge rural area, and that's part of the choices that we can offer. But that's establishing a complete community is something that we have to look at from a different lens. So we'll never have all in the rural area, it will never have all of the same choices, the same elements of a complete community as the urban area. But how can we, through planning policies and planning directions, how can we make it as complete? I think key word is as possible in the rural area. So recognizing that it's a different space, space, recognizing that there are different attributes, different challenges, different assets, and just kind of framing that in a little bit different in terms of what's actually achievable in terms of a complete community, and recognizing that it will never be the same as the urban area. I think that I hope that answers your question, Betty. Do you have if you have any follow-up questions, I mean, that's a huge part of livability as well. We're going to be looking at issues such as broadband and how can that be addressed through policy. And there are a lot of challenges, and together we're going to have to be creative and collaborate and work together on addressing those challenges through policy to the extent possible and feasible in the rural area.
And I think too, Nancy, if I may, I think it's really important that we need to look at Milton as a whole. And the rural community forms our community, the urban area forms our community. That makes Milton. And I think the more that we can collaborate with the rural community, the better. We it is a special space, as Nancy was saying. I mean, it's obviously very different than other parts of Milton, but it's part of Milton. And I think that's something that we really want to stress throughout this process, that Milton is one place. It's not the rural area versus the urban area. It's the town of Milton. And we want to ensure that your perspectives are included. And essentially, when we look at Milton as being a complete community, it's the whole of Milton, and the rural area forms part of that complete community. So we look forward to ongoing discussion, but it's really important that we regard Milton as a whole and not two separate communities.
And just as Jill was talking, I like a few ideas popped up as to maybe how we can kind of tease that out a little bit more in the guiding principles. And we're looking forward to further conversation about that. Thank you, Betty.
Okay, our next question for the team. We know that projects can be grandfathered in, but what does this mean for developments that may no longer be appropriate due to climate resiliency issues after the declared climate emergency in Milton?
Can you repeat the question, Tasia?
Of course, yeah. We know that projects can be grandfathered in, but what does this mean for developments that may no longer be appropriate due to climate resiliency issues after Milton declared a climate emergency?
I think I can attempt to answer that. That's a pretty complex question. Yes, the town did issue a climate emergency. A very important part of our official plan will be looking at climate change and looking at things through that climate lens. And that can mean a number of things. It can mean looking at different designs for buildings. It could mean looking at different engineering techniques that are less invasive to the environment, more naturalized engineering techniques. It could mean a number of things. And when you say grandfathered, what I would assume you mean by that is that certain applications have already been approved under the current legislation. So yes, we can't go back in time, but we can ensure moving forward that and this is very important to our council, is that we do provide that climate lens and figure out a way through policy in our new official plan to incorporate that. And as I said, it could mean many different things. It could relate to development. It could relate to how we design our parks. This conversation could go on forever, but I think what we want to ensure is that we have some strength in our official plan that promotes sound environmental planning, promotes things like green infrastructure, promotes the idea of doing things differently and not just doing things the same old way because that's the way they've been done for the last 30 years. We want to be open to new ideas and innovative, and I think that's how we're going to bring that climate change lens into our planning work moving forward.
Thanks, Jill. Our next question is from Kurt. Will you be looking at further intensification around the Milton GO station?
So that project is being led by David Twigg, so the Milton Mobility Hub study. And so that project, similar to MEV, would be a chapter of our official plan, our new official plan. I mean, much of that is being defined right now. Well, that just, Jill, do you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So I'm sure many of the people participating tonight are well aware of the development pressure that's on the lands currently surrounding our existing GO station in Milton. What we wanted to do at the town is be proactive and not reactive to those development applications because they are coming in, and we wanted to ensure that we had a policy framework that directs where certain heights and densities go, where we need to have some relief in the community in terms of parks and open space, and recognizing too that the lands around the GO station are going to take many years to develop, but we certainly do not want to be just reacting to development proposals. So in that, to answer your question, yes, we're looking at higher densities around the GO station, and those densities are actually prescribed at the provincial level. Having said that, though, we want to make sure that this works in Milton. We want to make sure this works in the Milton context. So just at the August 24th session of council, town staff did forward all of our background work in terms of the lands around the existing GO station, just for council information at this point in time. And staff have now been directed to come back to council with a go forward plan in terms of how we're going to tackle bringing amendments forward to council. So there's been no decisions made yet in terms of heights and densities in and around the GO station. We do have guidance from the study that was undertaken, and now it's our turn to look at that study, translate that into what it means for Milton, have a very open dialogue with the public and our council, and put forward recommendations for our council's consideration. And the first of those recommendations will most likely be presented to our council early in the new year. But our plan is to move forward to council either in November or December of this year with an outline in terms of short, medium, and a long-term action plan in terms of the decision process for our council for those lands around the GO station.
Okay, thanks, Jill. While we're on the topic of development and development applications, we have a question from Susan, and she's wondering if development applications could be put on hold until the new OP is in place.
Do you want me to start with that one, Nancy? I mean, the short answer, I can understand, the thought process that you have, Susan, but the answer is no. We have a current official plan in place. We are obviously looking to update and reinvent that plan through this work today. That being said, though, we are doing detailed studies in other areas of the town, like the education village, the lands around our existing GO station, some of our urban expansion areas, and all of that detailed information will make its way into our official plan. But the short answer to your question is no, we do not have legislative authority to put a halt on development applications until our new official plan is in place.
Hey, Jill, I have another question for you. Just while you're online, a couple of our participants are wondering if you could provide the latest update on the Tremaine Road and 401 connection.
So as far as I know, I mean, it is going to be a phased construction along Tremaine Road to connect to the 401. What I do know off the top of my head and from recent information from the Ministry of Transportation, the target is 2023 for the interchange at Tremaine and the 401 to be open. That's the information I have at my fingertips right now. But if the person asking the question wants to reach out to me after the meeting, we can certainly get a more detailed update. But my understanding is 2023.
Thanks, Jill. And to those who have who asked those questions, we did provide some contact information for you to get some more information. So our next question here is, has Milton undertaken an audit of its natural capital? Milton's natural spaces are an asset that should be accounted for as per the guiding principles.
Do you want me to take this, Nancy, or do you want to start?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Nancy. You start.
In terms of an audit, no, but there are existing plans, there are existing policies in place. There are existing regulations in place that we have to implement. So at the beginning of the presentation, I said that there are things that we really have no choice over, and the Greenbelt Plan guides us through that. The Niagara Escarpment Plan guides us through that. Conservation authorities and the regulations guide us through that. And this is really an area where we don't have a lot of choice, and possibly don't want a lot of choice. I mean, we heard loud and clear that environment and the natural area is a huge asset, and that's why people live here. It gives people a source of pride and inspiration and awe. And so in terms of an audit, no, we haven't taken an actual an audit, but what we're working with is existing policies, existing regulations that require us to ensure that these important assets of the community are preserved and maintained for the long term. Do you have
If
anything
I
to add,
may,
Jill?
yes, I do. And while maybe the term audit isn't quite the right term to use, I think it's really important for people on this call tonight to understand that when we are planning in Milton, we do extensive environmental study. And those requirements are bestowed upon us at the regional level. There is a regional, what we call a regional natural heritage system that has been mapped out throughout all of Halton. It is at a very high level in the region's official plan. And what we have to do when we do our local planning is to ground truth. And essentially, for example, all of Southeast Milton right now, our urban expansion area, we are undertaking, it basically is an audit of every feature, every stream, every creek, headwater drainage features, species habitat, threatened species habitat. And we have to filter all of that information, and we have to figure out how do we ensure that we protect the key aspects and important aspects of our natural heritage system, but the important pieces in an urbanizing environment. We need to connect the two together, and that's the work that we undertake really at a secondary plan level. That's a level, sort of a finer grain of policy work following an official plan. But what the official plan does is it requires that work to be undertaken. So I can tell you, yes, we for all intents and purposes do an audit, and I think it would surprise a lot of people, that extreme level of detail. We do bat surveys. We do, singing chorus frogs. We figure out where their habitat is. We have a list of endangered species. And if we find one of those endangered species, we have to ensure that their habitat is protected and there's appropriate buffering around our new communities to ensure that these species can thrive. So it's very much a part of our planning in the town of Milton. It's a requirement, and it's something that we take very seriously. And we ensure that all of the decisions that we make in the town of Milton in terms of the environment are science-based.
Okay, thanks, Jill. And our viewer who asked the question also just sent in a comment and said that their apologies, and instead of audit, they meant to more of an inventory of our ecosystem. So I think you answered that question perfectly. So we have about 3 more questions here, which we're doing pretty well on time. So Nancy, we have a question about the Technical Advisory Committee, and someone's just wondering who makes up that committee, who's on it, and it was, I think, just looking for a bit more information about the external stakeholder committees that you were talking about and how to get involved.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. So we have 3 committees that we've set up for this process. The first is a technical advisory committee. So that largely includes members of staff. So members that represent all of the different departments. We have people from the development team. We have people from community facilities, community services, transportation, transit. But we also have reached out to external agencies. So the region of Halton is definitely on our technical advisory committee, as well as school boards. Niagara Escarpment Commission is kind of straddling between our technical advisory committee, but also our stakeholder committee. So our stakeholder committee is like those groups, those people that really Milton couldn't function without. So that's our second group. So we have our technical advisory committee, our stakeholder committee. In terms of stakeholders, we have members of the business community. We have, again, Niagara Escarpment Commission kind of straddles between the two. We're meeting with the Milton Economic Development Advisory Committee. They're part of our stakeholder group. We have our heritage committees. We have our arts, various arts groups. Oh gosh, what else? We have members of the development committee. So again, technical advisory, they're the people who do like the day-to-day stuff in terms of implementing the OP, and then our stakeholders are the people that really make it happen on the ground. But we've also created a third committee, which we call community leadership. And those are anyone who just represents a community, a community interest, a nonprofit. In that group, who do we have? We have a president of a soccer club. We have members of the LGBTQ2+ community. We have the Special Friends Network. I wish I had brought all my list, but the Milton's moms group we've reached out to, or they've reached out to us to be involved. So yeah, we have these 3 buckets of groups that we're working with, and we've been very proactive about putting them together. And if anyone wants to get involved and be on probably our community leadership committee to represent an interest, to represent a voice on behalf of your organization or your community, just reach out to us. So again, on Let's Talk Milton, if you scroll down, there's it's a link that says if you want to reach out to our project team, click here, and there's a form that you fill out, and it goes right to my inbox. So it's not like it's going to be out in cyberspace and no one's going to see it. It goes right into my inbox, and I'll respond to you. So if you're interested, we're definitely looking to engage and develop and maintain relationships with everyone in the community who wants to be involved in this.
Perfect. So our second last question here is about traffic as a big issue for the community, and just looking for a bit of information about how the official plan can address this issue.
So the official plan will, so one of our major goals of the official plan is to implement local plans and studies that have been done. So a lot of work has been done, including a new transportation plan for Milton. And as I said at the beginning of the presentation, the official plan will give status to a lot of the work that's happening that's happened or happening in Milton. So it'll integrate it into a legislative document that we as town staff are required to implement, and our elected officials are required to implement. And so a lot of work has happened, as I said, including our transportation master plan, a lot of other master plans, the cultural plan, which I talked about. And as an umbrella document, we will integrate directions, things that are related to that we're able to legislatively implement through the Planning Act. We will integrate and implement through the official plan to make sure that those long-term directions and improvements are established through policy and implemented by staff.
Nancy, I think that was a great response. I just like to add a couple of points. I mean, one of the philosophies of our new official plan is choice. It's about choice, but we need to make sure that those choices are viable. And I'm sure the question stemmed from, frustration. Yes, there are areas in Milton today that where traffic is problematic, and people think, well, more development's coming, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Well, what we need to do and what we are doing is turning our minds to creating those viable alternatives to the automobile. It's not going to happen overnight, but if people are going to make other choices in terms of how they get around the town of Milton, we need to make sure that those choices are convenient. If people feel safe on bike lanes, they will be more inclined to ride their bike places. I know there are certain realities in life that may not make cycling a great choice for everyone, but we can certainly get some cars off the road by enhancing our trails and cycling network. But it's also about transit and designing our communities so that transit is convenient, so that it's not 10-mile walk to a transit stop where it's just absolutely not convenient. But also we need to look ahead to the future, and moving around our town may look very different in 25 years. Just look at what has happened with Uber and ride sharing and things like that. And I think it's important that as we move forward, we keep that open mind. We can't continue down the path that we've been down, solely focusing on the automobile. The automobile will always be a part of the mix. That's just our reality here in North America. Will always be part of the mix, but we need to ensure, and we have an opportunity through our new official plan to construct policies that promote other forms of transportation and ensures that our communities are built in such a way that makes other choices more attractive. So that's a real, it's going to be a challenge, but it's something that we want to integrate. A lot of the work that we're doing currently around the existing GO station is very much focused on mobility options, providing options for people to get to that GO station not in their car. So moving forward, it's going to be an interesting journey. But we need to think outside the box, and we definitely need to look at our community designs in a manner that doesn't always function around the car.
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
just add one quick comment. It's a bit light, but there's a commercial that I really love by Go Transit, and it's a child in a dentist's office with braces on, and one of their big messages is that it's going to be a little awkward. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, like a child with braces for a little while. As we grow, as we change, as we grow up, as we implement some of the directions from the region and the and as there's new infrastructure investment. So I think that's just another important point to keep in mind, that there are long-term plans, and we're changing the way we do things, and there is going to be one or more, several periods of awkwardness, and where there's some interruptions in how we move in our cars throughout Milton, but also how we move on our bikes throughout Milton, or how we walk throughout Milton. So I just really love that commercial, and it really resonated, and I think it's just something very important to keep in mind as we change as a community.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. So our last question of the evening for Q&A portion is about the mature area. And Susan's wondering if there's going to be a secondary plan for the area. And also she's wondering how the new official plan will protect heritage areas.
So I believe Hugo's on the line. Hugo, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but I know you're working on official plan amendments, and an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, and those would ultimately be implemented through the new official plan. But Hugo, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I can speak.
Great.
So we've been working for the last couple of years on mature neighborhoods character study, and we've been assessing the residential neighborhoods that are characterized by low or basically single detached and semi-detached houses within the established urban area, which is what I believe it's what the person is asking about, the old part of town and the I would say the residential areas dating from when the town was established up to the 1980s. And that's the area we're looking at. In terms of process, yes, we recently held a statutory meeting and presented the recommendations for an amendment to the official plan with regard to the mature neighborhoods and the character areas. And we are planning on bringing forward a technical report with the final recommendations from the study seeking council endorsement. I think that may answer the question. There's going to be enhanced policies in the official plan very soon, and those policies are going to be carried through the new official plan project into the new official plan.
And so I think the key message there is that the detailed work is being done right now through Hugo's mature neighborhood study, and that work will literally just plug itself into the new official plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That wraps up our Q&A. And if anyone has any other questions, you can fill out the contact form on the Let's Talk Milton page. We posted the link a few times in our chat here. Over to you, Nancy.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna wrap up by reiterating what you just said, Tasia, is that there's a lot of opportunities to reach out to us if I mean, sometimes we go to bed and then our minds start thinking and questions pop up. So if that happens and you have new questions or ideas or comments, please reach out to us. So lots of ways to do that. Number one is, I mean, we're really interested in what what our ask is to you is to tell us, what is the new vision statement, the new proposed vision statement, what does it mean to you? Choice shapes us. What does that mean to you? We've included a really open-ended question on our project page where you can just submit a story. You can just tell us, what does that mean? We've had a few so far. This is an opportunity to share and to use your voice and share it with all of staff, with all of the public, with all of the elected officials on our council. It's a really open and free space to share with us what choice shapes us. So that's our ask. Like, we're asking you, even tonight, while you're on a roll, just when we end up, maybe when we finish up, just head on over to Let's Talk Milton while this is all fresh in mind, and just drop us a story. It can be 2 sentences or whatever, 2 paragraphs or more. But that's our ask. But then we're also here for you. So if you have asks of us, or you have comments or burning thoughts, or things that you need to let us know, please feel free to reach out to us. We're being proactive, but we also want to be very open. So there's a form on the Let's Talk Milton page, again, where you can just click it, and it lets you tell us your name and your address and your comments, and it goes right to my, you don't have to give us all of that information, but what's key is your comments and your ideas, and it goes right to my mailbox. Okay, so share your story, contact us, and also just stay involved. You can subscribe to our project email list, and we use it a lot, and there's lots of updates being sent out to you. So those are my 3 thoughts about how you can stay in touch and stay involved. And in terms of next steps, we're going, as I said, I'm spending a lot of time talking to, we've had our meeting with a technical advisory committee, but I've got meetings coming out my ears with stakeholders, and I'm really looking forward to all of them. I've had probably a handful, 5 or so so far, and all of them are very different, and all of them are just from a different perspective, and they're really rounding out just all, what we're hearing, and planting seeds about maybe where we're going. So I'm having stakeholder meetings and our community leadership committee meetings. So that's happening over the next month. We're asking that comments be provided to us by no later than October 9th. And then from there, we're going to be presenting our vision statement, our guiding principles to council for endorsement. And we're looking at end of the year or early 2021 to present to council. And once the vision and the guiding principles are endorsed, we'll move into phase 3, which is our big questions, our series of discussion papers and our questions. And paramount to that is more engagement. So we're not coming up with questions for no one. These are questions for you. And so please stay involved. Keep your eye on Let's Talk Milton, and feel free to reach out. And we are looking forward to more conversations, more communication, and more engagement. That concludes our first virtual public open house for We Make Milton. I'd like to thank everyone for your time and for your interest and your commitment to Milton. And please stay tuned and stay involved. Thank you.